We are live. All right. Daniel, what's going on, my brother? How you doing? Still getting everything kind of set up here. We'll say, Bruce. All right, give me a second. The Hoosier, what's up, bro? Bruce, all you have to do is click that link, and just remember when you get everything loaded up in there to turn off your YouTube. Hope everybody's having a good evening. Hey, Hoosier, guess what, dude? We got hats. We got hats. Just saying. Daniel, take that one. What y'all think? All right, ladies and gentlemen, all three people that are in here, Daddy Duck proudly presents the one, the only, Mr. Bruce from Foul Play.
The one and only, huh? Well,
the one and only.
I guess that's accurate. The one and only with some messy hair. I can see now. So.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. Well, see, you need to buy one of my hats.
There you go.
Cover it up.
I'll put that on the list. I will put that on the list for sure. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I am doing good, man. Doing good. It's been a long 2 days.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
My work schedule is Sunday through Thursday.
Okay.
And yesterday was the end of the month. So we had the company I work for, we had all kind of accounting sheets and expense reports and all this stuff had to be done by 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Right.
And I started at 6 in the morning. And I ended up at 5 o'clock. So, and then this morning, like I said, luckily I get to work out of my house. But this morning, I started in my normal time, which is around 8. And we had some new forms that we had to start using these new forms. They weren't done correctly. You couldn't input information into them.
Sure.
So it pushed me back about 3 hours this day.
Oof.
I finished up at 4 o'clock, but it still pushed me up. It pushed me back about 3 days.
Gotcha. Well, all I did was spread 2 yards of mulch and mow the grass and check on my duck holes. So
yeah,
wasn't quite as stressful as your day.
I got speaking of mulch, my yard has completely gotten away from me.
Yeah.
And my wife and we finally broke down last week, and we're gonna hire somebody to come and get it right.
There you go.
Just to get it right, and then I can take it back over. But
I hear you. I hear you.
It just got away from me.
Yep, it'll happen. It will happen for sure.
Daniel in the chat is saying he's up in Minnesota, and they've got canvasback teals, woodies.
Wow.
Green. I'm assuming mallards, when you're saying green, are here by the hundreds of thousands.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just noticing. So anybody that's followed my channel, I don't know if anyone here has maybe Matt, you've been following it. So as soon as the season let out, I started feeding the ducks pretty heavy. I was throwing out, 100 pounds of corn every 5 or 6 days in two different spots, and had lots of ducks in, lots of ducks, lots of woodies mostly, but saw several pairs of mallards, a hen and drake together. Even some geese came in, which really surprised me, as tight as my holes are. But in the last few weeks, it might have been triggered, but we had a big flood right after Easter. Yeah, actually, the water crested on Easter, and all of my holes were in 7 or 8 feet of water. And I think that may have run what few ducks were here. I did jump a greenhead the other day when I was out there, but I was out there today. I did not see a duck. So I think they may have, for the most part, headed north. They are not.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? I'm just going to be introducing some people in here. Got Mark J. Larson in the house. Mark J. he's from Indiana. He's a trapper.
Cool.
So he takes care of our critters. Living MN is just an all-around outdoorsman, but he is a ice fisherman extraordinaire. I keep trying to tell him that the only ice fishing we do is when we put ice in our sweet tea.
Pretty much.
Hoosier, great guy. So he's been couch bound, I think. And yeah, he'd been couch bound for a little while. Anti just stopped in. Either Mark or Anti or one of y'all, would y'all please look up Foul Play Outdoors? That's who I got up here, Bruce. He's got a great channel. He's just starting off. It's growing, but we're gonna help him along, dude. He has got some. I wish I had the content he had.
Well, I appreciate that. That's nice.
In what you're doing right now, I wish I was able to do that. So if y'all can, y'all my moderators, Living, I know you're a moderator too. Hashtag sweet teals, not tea. But if y'all can post his information up for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Anti, Mark, I got to keep plugging this hat all night. We got him in. I got him in, brothers. So got the hats in. But yeah, these guys, they're gonna be chatting in the comments. I'll try to keep up with them. Appreciate that, Anti. But Bruce, just introduce yourself to the guys that are so far in the chat.
Sure.
And tell them a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, of course. So I started last year. I started the channel, I guess, in the summertime. I'm a retired guy. I'll go ahead and put that out there. So I got free time on my hands, and I'd been watching it on YouTube, trying to learn about how to improve habitat for ducks, bring them in with planting and other kind of management. And I found a little bit, but didn't find a ton. So I thought, I'm going to start my own channel. So I started up last season. So we're going into season 2 here for me now with the channel. So background on me. I'm originally from Kentucky. I grew up in the western end of Kentucky, right on the Ohio River down there. So these Indiana and Illinois boys might know a little bit about the area that I'm from. But
I've hunted in Irvine.
Where's Irvine?
Well, it'd be central, east central.
Okay.
By
I'm
Richmond.
down what we call the tri-state area. Grew up right on the border between Kentucky and Indiana, and Illinois was right there. If a lot of people that are familiar with there have heard of Ballard County, Kentucky,
right.
I wasn't that far west, even though I lived in that area briefly when I was a little bitty kid. But I grew up at a little bit more east of there, just across from Indiana, and hunting with my father in the Ohio River bottoms down there in the areas there. There's a big refuge, the Sawheber Wildlife Refuge is a huge refuge we had down there that held just tons and tons of birds every year. But about 40 years ago, when I was 10 or 12 years old, started hunting with my dad, down there and his buddies, and largely public land hunting. So a lot more opportunities really than I have here today in central North Carolina, but out there with him and his buddies, all of his teacher friends, and you know, kind of got the passion for duck hunting then, spending that time with my dad, making friends. But did that with him until, you know, I left the area for work and other reasons, and landed in North Carolina in late '99. And didn't really get it. I had to step away from hunting for a while at that point in time, just, you know, life. As we all know, duck hunting's not cheap, and at that time, you know, I had other priorities, so I just really didn't have the time or the resources to do it at that time. But probably about, I don't know, started maybe, you know, 15 years or so ago. One of my buddies, actually Scott, who owns the property that I shoot all my videos on, his neighbor was a duck hunter, and he introduced us, and he started getting me hunting here in the area that we're in here in central North Carolina. So I finally got back into it, and started hunting a lot of the public land around here, with everything that comes with. If you're familiar with the area, it can be rough at times. But so yeah, I've been duck hunting and interested in duck hunting for most of my life, but just more recently here in North Carolina. And then a couple years ago, Scott, who owns the farm, his family farm, his grandparents lived on and were, I guess, subsistence farmers, you would call them. You know, they raised hogs and crops for their food, right, for their livelihood. But they're no longer with us, and Scott and his brother and their sons hunt there, and they allow me to come in and quite honestly just kind of run them up. You know, they deer hunt some there and turkey hunt some, and I come in and they've got some beaver swamps, and you know, I've been trying last year to manage for that, and it's been a lot of fun. You know, last year I tried to grow some rice, a little bit of millet, and had some success. So I learned from that. Had some success, but not great success, I guess. So I learned from that. We're going to try, you know, a little bit different, try to refine it this year. But what's been really great about that is Scott has two sons. One is, I think he's about 21 now. The other, I think, is 17, still in high school. And then he also has a nephew, his brother's son, who's 22, I believe. And they show up in my videos from time to time. So with me coming out there and hunting, I've been able to kind of get that bug in their ear, and I'm pretty sure I've got them all three addicted at this point in time.
Yeah.
So, which has been they all, I think last year they all three shot their first ducks out there.
Oh wow.
And it's yeah. So I mean, you know how rewarding that is, seeing these.
Oh yeah.
So,
I don't care if you're a kid or if you're a full grown man. You shoot that first duck. If you've never been duck hunting before and you shoot that first duck, I had a guy 2-3 years ago, maybe. Matter of fact, it was in Kentucky.
Wow.
It was actually in Kentucky, and we were putting on a veterans hunt. It wasn't during the veteran hunt days. It was during regular season, but it was just veterans only. Me being a veteran, I was invited, and we had two other guys that were veterans. They were invited, and I was hunting with one of them, and I called in a flock of wood ducks. I know people say you can't do it, but I'm telling you, I do it so many times, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And anyway, this flock came in, and I had already shot my 3 ducks. Mine were on, I had already done it. And he had gone through like 2 boxes of shells. He just couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden he connects. And I have never, it was like somebody shooting their first big buck of their life.
Sure.
I thought he was going to break down and start crying. It was awesome. So yeah, when you're with somebody, and I got it on film too.
Oh, that's great.
Got his first duck on film, got his second duck on film. His third duck, he did shoot the 3 summer ducks because that's all we had at that time.
Yeah.
I was changing out a battery when that duck came in, and I just couldn't get the battery back in the camera fast enough.
So summer ducks, you mean wood ducks, right?
Wood, yeah. I'm sorry. It's
a
old man southern South Carolina
I get you. You know
thing.
what's funny? Growing up where I did in Kentucky, I always, my dad always said, "Man, it would be so awesome to shoot a big, pretty Drake wood duck to get mounted."
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually pretty rare where I was. We shot, I mean, mallards were common, gadwall, widgeon, teal occasionally. We saw a few pintail, never shot any. But never, I think I saw one wood duck in my entire career as a hunter back in Kentucky for 20 years or whatever. And we come out here and it's like, you're doing it good, a bunch of wood ducks. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the majority of what we get around here. It's
Right.
kind of crazy how things change. But they're a beautiful duck, and something we can talk about if you want to at some point in time. They're delicious.
Oh, they're the best eating duck out there.
They really are.
No, by
If you know how
far.
to cook duck, they taste really good. I've enjoyed several this past season. So
By
I'm not
far,
complaining,
my favorite to eat is wood duck. I mean, it's just it is. Yeah.
Have you ever
All
had
right.
speckled belly geese? Have you
Yes.
ever? They're pretty darn good.
They are the ribeye of the sky.
Yeah, they're
no
delicious.
well, I take
I've
that
had
back.
cranes.
They are Angus ribeye of the sky.
Right.
Crane is Wagyu of the sky.
Yeah, I haven't. That's what everybody says. I've not had the chance yet, so I'll get there one of these days. But yeah, that's what everybody says.
I was able to shoot them. Yeah, sandhill cranes. I was able to hunt them in Texas many years ago, and everybody killed their limit, and I think it was 3 or 4 at that time.
Yeah.
We had just finished up a hunt in Matagorda Bay in Texas where we could shoot 10 pintail drakes.
Oh gosh.
And we were there for like 3 days. And it was 2 of us, and for the first 2 days we shot 20 pintail drakes. And on the third day, we went up to the guy and I said, "Listen, I love shooting pintails. I love hunting pintails, but do you got anything else?" I mean, how many times can you actually say that? Do you have anything other than pintails?
Yeah, that's.
And he put us on redheads, and we ended up shooting our 20 redhead drakes that morning, the third morning. I mean, it was
Wow. Those are supposed to be redheads. I've heard are a good eating duck as well. I shot one this season, as you saw, and he's in the freezer. He's going to the taxidermist because he was a big stud drake. So, somebody that just logged in and commented there, Tom, my buddy Tom, he's eating a few. Tom will eat anything if it doesn't eat him first, but he says that he's had some of it. He didn't shoot them. I'll call him out on that, but I think a buddy gave them to him. He said they were delicious as well. So that's what I've heard.
Oh yeah.
The next one I shoot's going in the pot.
Yeah, I'll eat all my ducks. I'll even eat a coot if I have to. If I'm gonna the way I am, if I'm gonna kill it, I'm gonna eat it. That's just the way I am.
agree with you on that. Yeah.
So I don't really like killing coots, but there are days when you got to have something for the dog to retrieve.
It's pretty big down in. Actually, there's I don't know if you've seen it. It's Duck Camp Dinners. There's 2 seasons on YouTube.
Down in Louisiana, yeah.
And they go out and they target them for their gumbo. Yeah.
Palo. I'm not Cajun. I can't.
What do they call it? What they it's water. It's French for
Pool
water.
Pultan,
I think is what it was. Yeah.
But yeah, they're I can eat them. I mean, they eat vegetation. It's not like they're eating something weird. I mean, they eat the same thing ducks eat.
Sure.
Yeah, they just people look at them funny and go,
Yeah.
Because it's not a mallard duck, but
right. When I was a kid growing up, shooting a coot was taboo. You didn't want to be labeled as a coot shooter. That wasn't going to win.
And here's something funny: when I was growing up, shooting a summer duck was taboo.
Really? Well,
yeah.
Were they still coming back at that point in time?
They were here. We had them. We've always had them.
Yeah.
And as long as I can remember.
Okay.
And but it was just taboo. You waited until the big ducks came.
Oh. Okay.
And you could have 75 to 100 summer ducks swimming around by your feet, and nobody would pull the trigger. They wouldn't even let the kids shoot them.
That was probably because back then when we were kids, the limit was a lot. Were you guys, is that the point? The limit was small back then. So
it was two wood ducks. Now it's 3, but it was 2 wood ducks. Always has been, until they took it up to 3. But you just didn't shoot them. They were too pretty. That's what everybody said. They're too pretty to shoot. We're not going to shoot them.
Well, they were almost hunted to extinction back in the early part of the 20th century. I did a video on this. They were actually hunted for their plumage.
Feathers.
It was high fashion. They would make clothing out of their feathers and stuff.
That and trout flies.
Yep, that's right.
Trout flies. They take that wing. I got it up there. I'm not gonna pull it down. I'm not gonna pull them out down off the wall, but I got one up here where the 3 bars that come down right behind the wing. Those are what they wanted to make trout flies with.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. We've come a long way since then, for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're thick in swamps around here.
Oh yeah. Like I said, when we were talking earlier today, and I think we talked for 30 minutes on the phone earlier today, and we're probably gonna be talking about some of the same things we talked about on the phone because it was just one of those things. We both like to talk about ducks, but do you know how many videos you have? I know you have a bunch of shorts on your
probably nearly 30 from the first season of long form stuff, and I've got 7 up that I started for my season 2, and an 8th one that I kind of shot a little bit of footage for today that I don't know if I'll get it up tonight or not.
Right.
So 30-ish to 40 long form, and then like I said, a bunch of shorts that I stick up, of Rosie running through the water, or
right.
Something like that. So yeah.
But you have some videos that I tell you what caught my eye. What caught my eye the most was the conservation stuff. The waterfowl management on that property that you got. And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So like I said, Scott is my buddy. It's his grandparents' farm, and there is it's right off of a river that runs through central North Carolina, and I we have to be a little vague, right? I know none of the people that are big participants are gonna poach you by spot, but he already has enough trouble with trespassers out there. But anyway, there's a creek that dumps into that river that runs along the property line, and forever, as long as he's been out there, there's been beaver swamps. You get a creek in North Carolina, and beavers are going to dam it up. So there's a couple of spots where it backs up into lower lying areas and things like that, and places where I can catch the water, or really the beavers have done the majority of the work to catch water in their low lying spots. I come in and help them a little bit. Sometimes I have to pump water in or out, and maybe improve some dams to hold a little bit more water. But what I've done over the last several years with Tom, who's watching us here, that has helped me some. And of course, Scott's son, Nate, has gotten in there and helped as well. We've cleared them out a little bit, cleared some stuff out, which is a lot of hot, sweaty, nasty work. But we've been trying to plant. The first time I tried to throw out some Japanese millet was 2 seasons ago. And like the day I threw it out, we got a huge flood and washed it all away. And that happened again last season as well. Apparently, if I plant millet, it's going to rain. So if you have a drought in your area, give me a call. I'll come plant millet. But we cleared more last year, cut a few trees down, try to cut buckbrush. Buckbrush is pretty thick in here. But we're trying to, generate habitat that's going to attract ducks. They're flying over us all the time, mostly wood ducks. But this year I saw more mallards out there than I ever have, and I heard some widgeon. and we had ringnecks as well. I heard them kind of doing their little grunt call as they flew over. So we've got a collection of ducks. Even there's been some mergansers out there this spring, and geese. Resident geese are pretty common, but just trying to improve that habitat. Give the ducks a place to come. We only hunt them maybe once or twice a week, so they got a lot of time to just kind of hang out and be safe. And it's getting better. We shot more ducks this season we did last season. We saw a bunch this spring. So we're hoping to kind of build on that going into this year. Right now, I've been in the process of trying to get water off of these spots. We got rain again this weekend, and now everything's under a foot of water, right?
We got a bunch of rain yesterday.
Yeah, you got the same yesterday that we did. Yeah, sure enough. So, it's cool too because I left that water on. A lot of folks that have impoundments, and I put quotation marks around when I call mine impoundments because they're not like dug and diked and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of folks that'll have impoundments for ducks will the last day of the season just pull the boards out of their plastic riser and drain them. I left that water in there, and I was really kind of struggling with how long do I leave it there because I had so many ducks in there. I put up a couple of wood duck boxes. Nobody's used them yet, but lots of ducks, lots of pairs of mallards that I was seeing on my cameras. I put game cameras out. And I know I've had some nesting success of wood ducks. I was in there a couple weeks ago and I saw a mama with about 8 or 9 babies swimming around in the flooded timber. So also kind of trying to leave that into the spring, give those ducks some habitat. I was feeding them, so they were fattening up. If nothing else, they were fattening up for the flight back north, but making them feel safe, giving them some habitat. So that has a lot of other benefits. I mean, we're duck hunters, right? So that's our main priority. But I've got 1 or 2 blue herons that they're making a living off of these, places that I've created for them. They're there almost constantly. Actually, I saw them today when I was out there. Right, they're there constantly. Frogs, turtles, everything else is taking it that appreciates a wetland habitat is benefiting from what I'm doing out there. So that's a lot of fun. I'm getting just about as much fun from that as I am shooting ducks.
Yeah, it can be. I wish that I had a small piece of property. I mean, really, you don't need a lot. Now, when you say buckbrush, are you talking about the sparkleberry bushes got the little round ball?
I think that's what I would call button brush, and ducks will eat those balls. Right?
Yes, they will eat those.
Yeah. No, this is buckbrush. This is if you're a bass fisherman.
Okay, so you got the low lying.
Yeah,
okay,
that stuff.
Okay, I know. I wanted to make sure we were on the same.
Right.
We were on the same plane here.
In small numbers, it'll provide some cover for ducks, and I know that those wood ducks in particular will get and swim around in it. But one of the things, just to kind of talk about habitat management, especially, I'm not doing a lot of this, but if you're into moist soil habitat management, what you're trying to do is keep it at that what they call the early stage of succession, right? Habitat will go through succession where it starts with, lots of grasses and things like that, and go through more woody vegetation, and then eventually into trees, right? Moist soil is trying to keep that on the front end of more of the grasses and stuff. Well, that buckbrush is kind of one of the first things that comes in and gets in your way. So I'm not necessarily taking all of it out. I like to leave it along the edges by the trees, give those wood ducks some cover to hide in, because we have hawks and owls.
Right. You got avian predators
out there as well. But try to get it open in the center so I can plant, so the ducks have a place to come, and so I don't constantly trip over it and fall down in the dark, right? That as well, which I do a bunch.
Have you had mentioned earlier that you had planted some Jap millet in there? Mm-hmm. Have you thought about, or is the soil conducive enough for rice?
So I grew rice this year, actually.
Okay.
I didn't get it out early enough. I think I was on into July before I got that stuff planted. But it came up, it grew pretty well. And you can go back through some of the videos for last year. It actually did pretty darn good. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of ducks come to the spot where I had planted most of the rice, which is where I also built the blind last year. Tom and I shot a couple we shot 3 wood ducks one morning there, which was a blast. Had a great time that morning. But yes, rice will grow there. And I'm not adding fertilizer or anything like that. I
Right.
just rice and Japanese millet are both very easy to grow. It depends on with what I'm trying to do. I'm not a farmer, right? I'm not trying to grow for a harvest. But for the Japanese or for the rice, I just I flooded my area. I have the ability to control water, right? So I flooded it, 3-4 inches of water. Went through there, threw the rice out in that water. I've seen some other folks that want to soak it first, but this wasn't necessary. I bought a bag of, it's not wild rice, it's like agricultural rice.
Right.
And I threw it in the water and let it sit for about 2 days. And then I went in and I drained the water. And, in 5 to 7 days, it started to germinate and sprout and come up.
You can also seed it in if you got like a 4-wheeler. Just go in there and you got your area. If you can muck it up with a small disc and muck it up, kill all the grass that's in, kill all the grass, use some Roundup, kill all the grass that's in it. Come back 2 weeks, muck it up, spread it, and then run your plow back over it, your disc back over it rather,
right?
Just to lightly knock it into the ground, and then cover it again, and just let it. And when it gets about yay high, pour the water to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try some of that. That's one of the reasons why I want to try to get some of the remaining buckbrush out of there so that I can get the 4-wheeler through there. We do have a little disc out there. You might have seen me pulling it when we were planting the sunflowers for dove hunting a couple weeks ago, right? So we got that little disc out there. I've got the spreader that I put on my 4-wheeler that I can use to throw the seed out. But right now you can't drive through it because there's buckbrush stumps that are 12 inches tall.
Yeah,
right? You can't get through it, right? So I'm going to try to knock that down so that it just makes it a little bit easier to manage. But yeah, rice is easy to grow, and Japanese millet, if anything, is even easier. If you have a mud flat where water has receded, throw Japanese millet on top of it and walk away. That's all you got to do. It's going to grow. Brown top millet is not as good. Brown top millet is good we may throw some out in our dove field, but it's better in a drier, more well-drained soils. It doesn't do as well in wet stuff. I threw some out, it didn't grow. It will grow in drained soils.
The only things you're going to get to grow there is the only things you're going to get to grow there is either smartweed. And smartweed is awesome.
Yep.
That to me is the best. If I ever come across a place that has nothing but a bunch of smartweed in it, I'm hunting that spot because the ducks will be there.
Yeah.
But smartweed, Japanese millet. Well, my preferred would be smartweed, rice, and then Japanese millet.
Right.
That would be the way. That would be the breakdown going down.
Yeah, I would agree. The natural stuff like smartweed, it's going to hang around a lot longer. I know it's popular to hunt over flooded corn, but 30, 40 days underwater and corn starts to rot, and then ducks aren't going to eat it anymore. But smartweed, a million years of evolution can't be wrong, right? Smartweed is designed to go to seed, fall to the bottom, and wait for spring when it dries out so it can germinate. And we actually have quite a bit of smartweed out there. And we also this year, it took me a while when it was growing. I didn't know what it was, but I had a significant stand of barnyard grass, which is a wild millet that was growing out there as well, that did very well and made lots of seeds. So we've got some good natural vegetation growing out there. So I may just be augmenting that with rice and millet.
We have a question down here from a Nathan Davis.
I know that guy.
You know that guy? Thoughts on dwarf corn? I can tell you what mine are.
Go for it. Go ahead. Nathan knows. Nathan and I've already talked about it, so you go ahead and tell us what you think.
Personally, corn should not be used at all, period, for waterfowl management. At all. None. No, nothing. Number one, you're putting ducks on welfare by growing corn. Yeah. Number two, corn does not grow in the water. I don't care what kind of farmer you are. It doesn't grow in the water. Rich man plants it, poor man throws it. Okay.
Right.
But corn does not naturally grow in water. The issues with corn, you said it earlier, about 30 or 40 days, it starts to rot. Ducks will not eat it. Now, by saying that, if you do have a cornfield and you cut the corn and you have spillage, because you're going to have spillage when you're cutting any agricultural grain,
Sure.
you flood that field, you flood it after you cut it, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. But to grow corn to flood for ducks, it's linked to me. This is me personally, and I don't tell a man what to do with his property. I would never do that. It is legalized baiting.
There's a lot
in my.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But I'm not going to tell a man that he can't do it.
Right.
Because it is legal to do it. You can do it. But if you want, but he asked the question, what are my thoughts on dwarf corn? And I'm telling you my thoughts.
Yeah. So we talked. So that's I mentioned Nate earlier. So he's Scott's son, and this is his great grandparents' farm that we've been hunting on. So we get to hunt a bunch. We've talked about it. I mean, I've seen ducks, dumping into corn, and they'll come to it. My concern, and I'm sure Nate and I'll talk about this, is especially we're having a very wet spring. I think if we may try a little bit of it. We've got a local place here that sells dwarf corn. They do pond management, and they actually manage some impoundments for people in the area. We might try a patch of corn, but as it stands right now, I don't think we're going to be dry enough to get it to grow. The nice thing about rice is once it gets up 8, 9, 12 inches tall, if it gets flooded, it's going to keep growing, and corn's going to die if it stays underwater for very long. So we may try a little bit of it. One of the things too that kind of give perspective into Nathan's mindset is within earshot of where we hunt are some guys that they're probably not much more than a mile away from us that have a pretty large impoundment, and they're planting corn in there. So there's been a lot of mornings where we sit there hunting and just listen to them blast away. And they're hammering it.
And like I said, what a man does on his property is his business.
Sure.
I'm not going to tell him he can't.
Right.
Another thing about corn, and I'm not saying you don't get it, I'm saying it's reduced. But in the South, especially in the winter, especially in the late winter when the season's about to close, ducks are looking for invertebrates, and they need those invertebrates for the protein in order to have a successful hatch in the spring.
Right.
Now, you will get some invertebrates on the corn, but you don't get them like you do other food sources, especially smart wheat and rice. You'll get some on Japanese millet as well, but not the big bloom of invertebrates.
Right.
Corn and your carbohydrate stuff, rice included, Japanese millet included, corn included, is really great for cold weather.
Right.
Other than that, they want invertebrates. That's what they want. So that's why I like a moist soil environment, because I can have rice or Japanese millet in one section, and then moist soil as far as what you call buttonbrush, what I call sparkleberry, smart weeds, your natural millets, your springle tops and all that stuff, all mixed in, so they get a banquet, of different foods.
Right. Variety's good.
And they need that variety. They need those little bugs, they need those little frogs and tadpoles, and they need crawfish, and they need that. They need all of it.
Yeah.
And,
I first heard, I first heard the phrase moist soil habitat from a guy Tom and I hunted with a few years ago that we're not going to talk about. But Tony Vandemore, which I'm sure people that follow duck hunting online,
Yeah.
they know who Tony Vandemore is. He's the first guy I really heard talk about it in great detail. And the nice thing about if you're purely a naturalized moist soil habitat with, like you mentioned, the smartweed being big thing, the sprangle top, the natural millets like barnyard grass and stuff like that. The cool thing about them that you can do that you cannot do with anything you've planted is you can come in before you flood that field and mow it down.
Right.
And spread that seed and it lays those plants over. This is what I learned from Tony Vandemore. It lays those plants over this nice horizontal substrate, and that's what causes those invertebrates to grow, right?
Yep.
So you can't, as you know, you can't go in and mow down a field and hunt ducks over it. That's baiting. That's manipulation.
You can't mow the corn. You can't mow the
nope.
Japanese millet. You can harvest it.
Exactly.
You can't mow it down. Yep.
The millet will help you out because millet, it gets wet, and in a week or two, it's going to fall over, and rice will eventually do the same, right? But the corn won't. It's going to stand up, pretty much all season until you knock it down. So that's an advantage of that moist soil habitat as well. I've been thinking about it. I guess it's just fear on my part that because it's easier in the fact that maybe it's less effort to do a moist soil habitat. You don't have to get in and plant a bunch of stuff and that kind of stuff, but you got to plan better for it as far as you're drawing down your water slowly over time and those kinds of things. And in my mind, it feels like I'm rolling the dice. If I throw seed on the ground, I know it's going to grow, right? I'm not sure what's going to come up if I don't do anything. So I'm just a little nervous about that.
It's ground manipulation.
Yeah.
You go in there, you cut it, you mow it down, you plow it up, you manipulate the soil to get the smart weed to because it's underneath the ground.
Right.
As soon as you run over it, it's going to stratify. I'll get the word right in a minute. Stratify, and then it'll start to, you're manipulating that soil, with small burns, that kind of stuff, mowing, you're going to get that regrowth of those natural millets and that smartweed and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We hunted last year. I was telling you about the last October where we shot all those mallards in October, which you were like, what?
Yeah.
It was a combination of three food sources in that hole. Number one was smartweed.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it had hydrilla in it. So you're getting a good invertebrate.
Yep.
You're getting good invertebrates off of hydrilla. And it had button brush or sparkleberry bushes. I was like, we're sitting here.
Right.
When we were walking through it, I said, no, we're sitting right here.
Yeah.
And the guys I was hunting was, no, we need to go to this little hole. I said, no, right here. This is it. You got three different food sources right here.
Sure.
And open water. So why? Charles Holden's in the house. Charles is a North Carolinian from the East.
Hey, Charles.
Wilmington area.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, dude, I've been waiting for me and you to sit down here and talk for a while.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
Now, Charles, this is Bruce. He's got a Foul Play Outdoors YouTube channel, Instagram. Do you have TikTok, or you just on Instagram?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't have, just Instagram. I'm too old for TikTok, I think.
I do it for the fun of it. So
yeah, maybe I will. I'm still figuring out the other stuff.
But he's got a great little channel. And we're gonna try to get him up, get him some people to go over and take a look at it. Of course, do it the right way. Go watch a video, then comment. Then give it a thumbs up, then comment, and then subscribe. That way he gets it all, and try to build him up a little bit, because
Appreciate that.
His management, even though they're shorts, like I was telling you earlier on the phone, you had the flood area and you had the camera and you were walking to it, and then all of a sudden it was a short. And I didn't realize it. I wasn't paying attention. I was just watching videos,
Right.
and it stopped. I got mad. I was like, dude, what happened?
Right.
I want to know. We got a Ron in the house. Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Hey, is that Ron? Is that Ron? That's if that's the one I'm thinking of, that's Ron from Ohio. He's one of my first subscribers to the channel and has been following along for a long time. So Ron, if that's Ron from Ohio, thanks for joining.
Cool beans. But we let's see here, wood duck boxes or summer duck boxes as I call them.
Sure.
The I noticed that you had one on a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about moving it.
Yeah.
I would definitely move that.
Yeah, I'm going to move that one for sure next year.
The coons can climb that tree and then jump on the top of it and go right up underneath it.
Yeah.
Give me a holler if I need to drive 4 hours. I will. We'll go put a pole in the ground.
That's okay. Now we'll. Yep, that is Ron from Ohio. Thanks for joining, Ron. Yeah, when I put that one there, and I knew what you were talking about is a possibility with coons coming in, and they're definitely in the area. I've seen them on game cameras. Hopefully, well, nobody's used it yet, so it got flooded. If they got flooded out anyway. I think they're high and dry now, but they did get flooded out with the flood we had around Easter. But yeah, I do want to get them out. It was when I hung it on the tree, the water was higher and it was over water. Now it's kind of over land, which probably isn't a big problem. But I do want to, actually both of the ones I have, they're both hung on trees, but I want to get, I was just under a time crunch to get them out there this year. So I'll get out there probably sometime, once a season. I'm not going to do it in the summertime because there'll be wasps and all kinds of stuff in there, but yeah, I'll get them moved in more permanent water. Another thing I want to do, since I saw a pair of mallards out there last year in July, so they were there a long time. And if anybody follows Delta Waterfowl or is a member of Delta Waterfowl, you know that they've developed these
the hen houses.
These hen houses, yeah. So I want to put some of those out next year as well, and encourage those mallards to kind of nest there as well. Like I said,
You can actually get geese. You can actually get geese to get in them.
I've heard that, and geese are nesting. I don't know that they're nesting on our farm, but just down the road, I was coming home the other day, and there was several geese with a bunch of goslings swimming in a swamp just a few miles. So we've got a bunch of, actually a lot of places in North Carolina, and it may be the same for you down in South Carolina. They're actually kind of a nuisance. And we've got a lot of resident geese. So we have that I think the whole month of September, they're in season. Right. You just can't hunt on golf courses, so that makes it problematic.
Yeah, Ron saying Delta is a great organization. Cecilia had to leave. Something wrong with her internet, I believe. Thank you so much, Anti. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Delta. I have been for many years.
Yep. And Ducks Unlimited as well. I think both are great organizations. They do. Yeah, I know. I get that reaction a lot, and
I have nothing against the organization. I just see a lot more coming from Delta and their volunteers with their different chapters. I see the chapters doing a lot of stuff,
right?
Where I don't see DU their chapters doing anything with. I don't see them doing that much.
I agree.
Not as much.
I think that's a fair point. So Tom and I are both in the local DU chapter here, so we've been participating in that for several years, and I think the main focus with DU chapters is raising money that goes back to the organization. And for a long, long time, probably for the majority of their existence, Ducks Unlimited didn't spend any money in the United States. They were spending it all up in Canada, in the prairies, up there in the breeding habitat. And it's only been in I don't know, maybe the last 20 years where they started spending money, here in America. So I get your perspective. Now, they've actually spent money in North Carolina. Tom and I hunted. Texas Plantation is a draw permit, public game land. You may be familiar with it. It's kind of east. It's east of Columbia, North Carolina, where you can draw, and it's about 250 acres of flooded combination moist soil and rice and millets that they grow out there. But that was a joint project with Ducks Unlimited. So they're actually putting money in the ground in North Carolina, and we're taking advantage
like
of it.
I said, the organization it's just the chapters, the local chapters are. I mean, I used to be a member of DU. I used to be a member of the local chapter here. All they want to do is have their big party once a year, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I agree.
And that's what they wanted to do, and I was like, no. I'm not a big partying kind of person. I
get that. I think it's just a different approach. Delta, I think, is much more. They're a much smaller organization.
They're research.
I'll give you an example of the difference in how they operate. So both organizations have podcasts, and they're both very good. If you like listening to podcasts, and if you're into the kind of the science and habitat management and stuff, both of them have some great episodes on both of those. But this past season, with this new highly pathogenic avian influenza thing that was going on, right? And when the story kind of first hit that, you're not going to be able to bring ducks back from Canada, that kind of thing. I sent emails to both podcast emails and said, hey, what's going on? You going to talk about this? Are you going to do anything? Just ask a question. I'm just some dude sent an email. So I'm sitting here watching TV one day, and my phone rings, and it's a North Dakota phone number. I'm like, I don't know anybody in North Dakota. So I answered it, and it was Joel Bryce, who is the host of the Delta Waterfowl podcast and their chief conservation officer, right? So he took the time to call me personally and talk to me about the situation and educated me on what it was. And at the time, it was not as big as it eventually became. It eventually became a bigger thing. But that's kind of the difference. I think it's a much smaller organization. They're more focused on some more visible stuff. They do a lot of predator control. There's a puppy dog, but they do a lot more predator control in a lot of prairies, coons and skunks. I think coons just did not exist 100 years ago, and they kind of followed the expansion of us as we went west through the prairies. So they're focusing on that and just different things. The organizations, I think they both provide a lot of benefit. They just focus on different things, and I agree with you. But the Delta waterfowl things they're probably a lot more active at the local level than DU is.
Right. Now, Ron asked, did we talk about rice planting? He's in Northeast Ohio. We touched on it. I'm a big proponent of rice. One of my best friends is a actual rice farmer here in my state. So I'm a huge proponent for growing rice, not only for harvesting and then letting the ratoon crop come back and then flooding it, or even using it as a moist soil to help with the moist soil.
But I've actually got an area that we didn't ever hunt it because birds weren't coming to it. It's kind of close to the road, but I threw rice out in it last year. I'm not throwing out any this year. I kind of want to see if it comes back on its own, see if the seed that fell on the ground. But Ron, just at a high level, rice is easy to grow if you can control your water level. You want to be able to kind of clear out any existing grasses or vegetation as much as you can. The way I did it, there's a couple of popular ways. Matt mentioned one, but the way I did it last year was I flooded it with several inches of water. I spread the rice out like you might broadcast seed in your yard in the fall, and let it sit for 2 days, and then slowly just let that water drain off, or pull the plug basically, and the water drained out. and it grew. Matt also talked about going in there where it's really mucky, and if you got a little disc or even a four-wheeler where you can cut the soil up, cut donuts or whatever. But if you can throw that rice in some muck, and then turn it over a little bit, it's going to grow. If it's in wet mud, rice is going to grow. And the neat thing about rice, we didn't mention this earlier, I think we alluded to it. We knew what we were thinking, but we didn't share it with everybody, is the great thing about rice is it will grow in water, which means that you can reduce competition from other less desirable plants. So once that rice gets up about 8 or 9 inches tall, don't cover it in water, right? But if you got an 8-inch tall rice plants and you put 4 or 5 inches of water on that rice is going to thrive, and all the other non-desirable things that you don't want growing, cockleburr and other stuff, won't grow. So it's a great way to keep your weeds out of your rice.
Another thing that a lot of people don't think about with rice is, let's say you have a 5-acre area, and the soil has to be conducive to growing rice. So it has to be a luminous soil. It has to be a luminous soil. So it's got to be able to hold water. All right. So you take your field, you cut it down, you mow it, you kill everything in it, round up it, kill it, leave it for 2 weeks, and then grow it. Now, I'm just using 5 acres as an example. It's just a baseline example.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in there and you plant rice and at the right time put water on it and grow that rice, if it is a commercial rice, something like Charleston Gold or Carolina Gold rice, you can go in after it's matured, drain the water down. This is all before the duck season. You can harvest that rice, sell the rice, and you will probably make enough money to recoup your rice, your fuel, and whatever else you have. Because it's, I'm not saying you're going to make 100,000 bushels on 5 acres, but I'm saying you're going to make some.
I've thought about that.
Once that happens,
yeah,
again, you have a return crop, which is your spillage.
Right.
It's going to grow back up before duck season. You put water on it. Now you've got a return crop for duck. You've made money. You've got a return crop. It's a win-win-win. I mean, there's just no getting around it.
Yeah.
But it does take you got to know what you're doing. I mean, you got to experiment with it. And my good buddy, Palmetto Rice Company. He owns a Palmetto Rice Company. He's got a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Ty Bodiford.
Yeah.
Really good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time. He's a rice farmer, crawfish farmer. And I'm telling you, it is, I mean, he's got a spot right now it's not even close enough to being the duckiest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But when he grows rice, he's got ducks on it.
Yeah.
They come to it. It's.
Yeah, no, you're right. So Ron asked a question: does rice really need hot weather? Ron, you might be too far north for.
He would be in the wild rice area.
That's what I was going to suggest as well. So there's a company, they've got a YouTube channel as well. River Refuge Seed. I think they're out of Washington or Oregon or something like that. But they harvest and sell wild rice. And Ron, you might even be far enough north where we are. We can't do this, but this is wild rice, right? And it grows like 6 feet tall. It grows in water. You plant it in water. It grows up and lays on the water surface, and then finally starts to emerge.
You throw it. You don't even throw seed. You actually have a plant, and you take the bunches of plants and you like tie a little weight to them.
Yeah.
A little piece of string, a little bit of weight, and you just drop them over, and it sinks to the bottom.
Okay.
A lot of guys use rocks,
But the river refuge seed, I think they're just throwing seed in water. It has to stay wet. They send it to you wet, and it has to stay wet, or it just will stop being viable. But the reason I say what we can't do in the South is the rice, when it falls in the water, it has to, what is it? It goes through stratification. It
Yep.
has to spend like 6-8 weeks in cold water, which we just don't get. We don't get that long-term cold water. Up there in Ohio, that you may very well get that. But you can buy, if not, you can buy it from them. The only problem is they don't have any now. They sell out quick. If you wanted to try to get some to put in the ground, you'd have to wait till the season was over, because throwing seed out during the season might be baiting. But in February, you could throw this seed out. You probably want to put an order with these guys at River Refuge Seed right now.
Anti just posted a link to it in the chat.
There you go. Great. They've got some neat stuff. I've emailed them a few times to ask questions. They've been very responsive. They sell more than rice. They sell a lot of wildlife seed and other kind of natural stuff as well. But Ron, it gets in the 90s up there. I've seen or seen some mention. There's like in the agricultural field, which I obviously am not in. They talk about like heat units of heat that have to go on plants, and rice is going to need so many units of heat. It's basically hot weather over time to allow it to grow and mature. So I mean, you might be able, what it means is like it doesn't get as hot up there where you are as it does where we are down here in the Carolinas. So you probably have to put it in the ground very, very early. Like I'm trying to put mine in the ground June 1st, give it 90 days. It's going to be hot June, July, and August. It'll be plenty fine. You would probably need to try to have rice in the ground already now up there where you are, just so it has enough time to get those heat unit days, whatever it's referred to. But like I said, I would think, especially if the wild rice would be great in an area where you can't as easily control the depth of your water. If you can't drain it, this wild rice will grow in water. I think if it's clear up to 2 or 3 feet deep, right? So you can throw it out there in February when the season's over. And if it's in 2 or 3 feet of water, most ducks aren't going to feed on that and eat all your seed before it has a chance to grow. But it would work pretty good. So I would probably try to give that stuff a shot. Like I said, if you can't control your water, it's a really great option. It'll grow anywhere. We can grow it here, but
takes a long time. Wild rice. There is a southern variant of wild rice.
I can't find seed for it though.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I said I can't. I've looked around. I can't find seed for it. I don't know if you know where to buy seed for it.
I know that there's a southern variant. I'm like you. I was looking at options a while back, and I couldn't find any either. Yep. Cody from After 5 Outdoors is in the house. Dark 30 Outdoors. That's Kyle. He's in the house. Who else? Does anybody else come in that I missed? Guys, for those that are coming in now, this is Bruce. Bruce is with Foul Play Outdoors out of North Carolina. Great channel. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching his stuff. I've said this like 5 or 6 times tonight already. I'll keep saying it. Very experienced duck hunter, knows a lot about management. He's given me a run for my money tonight, I think. We're going to keep this competition going up. But great guy, man, and he's got a great little channel, and we're going to try to get him some extra help.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You all know how to do that, so
yeah.
I'm just trying to catch up on some of the chat here.
Oh, just real quick, thanks to Mark Larson for subscribing. I just got a notification that he subscribed, so thanks a lot, Mark.
Oh, great. You will find that the guys that are in this group that I have here tonight, it may not be a lot, and I am missing a couple of people that haven't shown up tonight. I can't wait for them to get here. There's Shiner, that Shiner guy. He's down in Florida. He is a bass fisherman extraordinaire.
Awesome.
The only thing about Shiner that I love most about him is he falls out of the boat, and he films it. So when he does, I love, because it happens to all of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But these guys that are in here, I mean, we've been together. on from other live streams, and we go to other each other's live streams when we can, and they come to mine, and I go to theirs. We watch each other's stuff as much as possible. It sometimes gets overwhelming. We all know that, but yeah, great group of guys here that are here tonight.
Cool. Yeah, I made a lot of great friends through duck hunting. Like I mentioned, when I started getting back into it in when I was moved here in North Carolina, my Scott introduced me to his neighbor Kevin, and he and I we try to get out. Right lately he's been spending more time deer hunting. His family has a farm up in Virginia, and he goes up there and deer hunts. But we try to get out at least once a season if we can, and it's great the people you meet through duck hunting.
All right, so if you're reading any of the comments, all right, so I do have some guys that are 100% pure T bass fishermen. So if you look behind me, right there,
yeah,
if that's a 14-pound fish.
That's a
largemouth, and
nice.
This one here is about 6 or 7.
That's cool.
I eat bass. Okay, I'm not a catch and release kind of fisherman. If
right.
I catch it, I'm going to eat it.
Sure.
I love eating bass, crappie, brim, catfish. I love it. I love to eat them.
Yeah.
So it has been a standing joke in this live that somebody's going to say something about me eating bass, because some of these guys in here are hardcore bass fishermen, catch and release guys. That's one heck of a pond. You daggone right, it's one heck of a pond. We do have a family pond that it is way overstocked, and we have to take some fish out of it.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you like this. My dad's been fishing for the past 3 weeks, just about every day, and he's taken 5 or 6 fish out of it every day, and he still has not even hurt the pond.
I'll eat bass. It was funny. Last spring, I bass fish a bunch, right? And have for a long time. I used to do some local tournaments. I've stepped away from that lately, but I was sitting around here one day. I worked in the yard all weekend, and like I said, I'm retired. I bass fished on Monday. I was kind of tired, but kind of bored also. Didn't want to sit around. I thought, you know what? I can sit on my boat just as easily as I can sit on the couch. So I put the seat in the front of my boat. I bought 2 dozen minnows and headed out to the lake with nothing but a couple of crappie poles. Went to one of the spots where I've been bass fishing and not having any luck, and go out there, threw my first minnow out there, and turned away and looked down at something and looked up. My bobber was gone. I'm like, I got one already. So I pulled back on it, and it starts pulling. I thought I had catfish. I had a 3-pound bass. I'd been in there the day before, throwing jigs and crankbaits, couldn't get bit. Threw a minnow in there, caught a 3-pound bass. I was like, darn. I threw him back. I put on another minnow, threw it out. No sooner than it hit the water, it went down again. I caught another one. And I said, well, I'm here for some meat. So I threw him in the live well. I caught another one about the same size that day. I brought those suckers home and they were dinner. So I'm not above that. I will say largemouth bass is not my favorite fish to eat. It's good, but it's not as good as a crappie, in my opinion.
I will have to tell you, crappie are the best.
Yeah. So Ron asked a question. I think somebody posted an answer to him in there, but Ron asked about mixing rice and millet. Yes, you can. The thing is they don't mature at the same rate. Rice is generally about 90 days to maturation, whereas Japanese millet, or this golden millet that they've developed out in Arkansas specifically for growing for ducks, is more like a 60-day kind of maturation thing. So what I plan to do this year is I'm going to get my rice out hopefully by June 1st and let it do its thing. I suspect I'll have some areas where it just for whatever reason doesn't come up, and I'll have some bare patches, and then I'm going to go back behind it and throw the millet on top of that 1st of July. Throw it on a mud flat. So I'm going to mix the two. Just if you plant millet at the same time you plant rice, it's going to mature way before the season comes along, and your blackbirds and everything else are going to eat it, and they're going to not thank you at all. and it just won't be there by the time duck season rolls around. So that'd be the only thing. I would plant rice first, and then thinking 60 days before when I want to flood it to hunt, then I would start throwing out the Japanese millet to get ready, and any bare patches that I have.
I would not plant it together. I may plant it in the same
Not at the same
hole,
time. Yeah,
but not
right.
mixed.
Great.
Not
Agreed.
mixed.
Yeah.
I'd have a rice over here. I'd have millet over here.
Yep.
Once the rice comes up, if you've got bare patches, because what's going to happen is that millet and the other grasses will control or try to take over the rice.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't put them too close together.
Sure.
And I definitely wouldn't mix them together.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't mix them together. What I'm kind of thinking about doing this year is putting the rice out there, and maybe a couple of areas not throwing any rice out and leaving it open, and then coming back later to plant the millet. Because one of the things about millet, I mentioned it earlier, you put water on millet, and in a couple of weeks it's all going to fall down. So those I'm thinking about putting those and making those my kill holes. Right, so you can't knock it down, but if it falls over on its own, that's fine. So I'm thinking about kind of doing that, leaving some areas without rice where I want to kind of, because the rice is going to stay standing up throughout most of the season, but that millet's going to fall over much sooner.
Tom says, don't need them competing for nutrients. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't do it. I would not put them.
You're right. I would not mix them. They're gonna compete against each other. They grow at different. They mature at different times. No, I would just
plant your rice, and then if you have bare patches or if you want to hold an area back, then plant the millet later. Yeah, way later. Because by the time the millet, or by the time the rice is tall enough, once it gets to that certain height, which is I think is 6 inches, maybe even less. I can't remember off the top of my head. You're going to have to start putting water on it. Yeah. To control the weeds in the rice. Yeah. Your millet is only going to be that tall, and you're going to drown it out. Yeah. And I've been told if you had a higher spot, if you had a higher spot, yeah, I would put millet in the higher spot, and then start bringing your water up to cover your rice in the lower spot, and then as the rice grows taller, you can bring the water up, and then get it over into the millet about 4 inches, maybe. That's perfect. That'd be perfect. I've been told that golden millet does even better in water. And it's there's another German golden millet, but that's not the same thing. This is a new stuff. It's like I said earlier, it's been developed specifically for duck hunting. If you go to Max Prairie Wings, you guys are probably all familiar with that. They sell it, and there's also the Golden Millet Seed Company. If you've never been there, you need to go. It's a pretty cool place. But the Golden Millet Seed Company or something like that. We used to have a dealer somewhere in the Carolinas that you could buy it from, but it apparently they developed it specifically. Take care, Cody. They say it makes a bigger seed head and will withstand flooding better, even the Japanese millet. So I think I'm going to give that stuff a try this year. And it's not expensive. That's the nice thing about Japanese millet. It's cheap. You get a 50-pound bag for $50 or $60. And this golden millet really is. The worst thing about buying a 50-pound bag of seed through the mail is the shipping, right? That's what gets you, because it's 50 pounds, right, of freight. So, but I think our local place here, I know they have rice. I know they have Japanese and brown top millet, and they have the dwarf corn that Nathan was asking about. I don't think they have golden millet, but I'm going to give those guys a call here coming up and find out. Well, most of your feed and seed places, if they don't have it in stock, you can go there and order it, and they'll call you when it comes in. I mean, we did some rice a while back on a little small piece of property that we had and lost all in the same year. And we planted it, and it came up great, and we were getting all excited to go hunt it. and the landowner passed away, and his son took over, and we got the boot.
Yeah.
Jeff Barris, how you doing? Jeff, this is Bruce from Foul
Hi,
Play
Jeff.
Outdoors. Got a little small YouTube channel. Great guy. Get a chance, go over and take a look at his channel for me, would you?
I would appreciate it. Thank you. Mark left. I just saw it on my phone pop up. Mark left a comment. I think it was on the most recent video where I was shoveling dirt. He said, "I must love duck hunting because that was a lot of work."
Yeah.
I only showed about 20% of the work that I did. I filmed it all, and I thought, who wants to watch a fat old man shovel dirt? Right. So I took a bunch of it out. I was dragging dirt across the swamp in my jet sled, which is a great duck hunting purchase if you don't already have one. But it was a half a yard of dirt, which they told me at the fill dirt place is 1,000 pounds. So
Yeah.
I drug 1,000 pounds of dirt across the swamp the other day.
Dang.
And Tom, what you doing Saturday? Because I think I might have to do it again after this flood we just had. I'm afraid it's going to walk all that out.
Charles says, wasn't there a dealer for golden millet near Hartsville or Manning, South Carolina a few years ago? Yes. And I don't know what happened. I can't find them anymore. They're just like, I think the whole building's gone.
I think, let me see. I just opened another browser window. GoldenMilletSeed.com is the company that developed it. And on their website somewhere, they have the phone numbers of their dealers. And there's one or two in the Carolinas. So if that's still, if not, they say call them and they'll work something out with you. So wherever you might be, there's probably someone in the area. Like I said, I know Max sells it, and I think their shipping is not terrible for it, actually. But it's still
and I know that Mossy Oak, Toxie Hayes, Haas, how you want to pronounce it, from Mossy Oak, they have their own brand of that golden millet. But I think it's got some other stuff in it.
Yeah.
But it is their waterfowl mix.
Yeah.
I believe is what it's called. But it's got golden millet in it, but it's got some other stuff in it as well. I have not heard any pros or cons on it, so I don't know offhand.
Yeah, I haven't heard enough where I would feel comfortable talking about it. I've heard of it as well. I think it's got probably some buckwheat and maybe like some wild that someone posted earlier. What is it? WGF wild game food or something, sorghum. Different kinds of sorghum. This is something I learned recently. There's one kind of sorghum which I think is grown in agriculture, and they actually developed it to taste bitter to birds, so they won't eat it. So you want this wild. And whoever posted it earlier, if you could,
I didn't even see it.
Yeah, if you could type that again, I saw someone put it through there. It was in reference to Ron's question about planting stuff together. They mentioned I think it's WGF wild game food sorghum, or Milo, which are the same thing apparently. But whoever that was, if you're still here with us, can I scroll up?
I was doing the same thing. I'm trying to find it.
Let's see. There it is. It was Charles Holden said WGF sorghum, wild game food sorghum. So, yep, there it is. He just posted it again. So that's a specific kind of sorghum that you can grow for game animals. It grows. I think Scott threw some out in our dove field last year, and it was like 10 or 12 feet tall. It was ridiculously tall.
Well, speaking of dove fields, how was yours? I mean, I've seen a few of your shorts, so you got a little dove field going. How big is it?
So it's about 1 acre. As far as Onyx map tells me when I did a circle around it, it's about 1 acre, surrounded by woods, which is not optimal for dove hunting. They kind of like it a little bit more open, but I shot birds in there I shot Rosie's first bird in there last year on her first birthday, by the way. Her first birthday. But we went out there. We've been kind of constantly working on this field over the last several years. It was one of the fields that Scott's grandparents, farmed when they were living there. It's kind of started to encroach in the sides. We haven't been able. I mean, a couple of guys with chainsaws, you can't keep the forest back, right? But yeah, he had his little subcompact John Deere in there. We tore it up, and I pulled his little disc behind the four-wheeler, and Nate was there. You saw him driving the tractor, if you guys caught that video. But it's looking good. I was out there today. We've got 2 good deep soaking rains. The soil is still very, very soft. I was actually sinking into it when I walked across it today. But all the little sunflowers are about 2 inches tall. They've all got 4 leaves on them. The only thing is eventually the deer are going to find it. I didn't realize this until just recently, but deer will eat the snot out of sunflowers until they get about, I don't know, 3 or 4. They got to get pretty tall, and then they start to get more fibrous, and the deer don't like them. So it's really, really thick. It could probably stand some thinning. So hopefully there's enough in there that the deer will come and eat some, and it'll just thin it out and not wipe it out. And we'll shoot some dove in there. We're going to come in probably 1st of July, I think, maybe 1st of June. And any bare patches, we're going to throw some brown top millet on top of it.
All right, I'm going to take this. Ron says, if you drain the water off, won't that be detrimental to nesting ducks?
Good question.
No, it will not. Ducks are known to net. All right, so we're talking wood ducks or summer ducks.
Mallards are
They're tree nesters, so they're going to be nesting in cavities of trees. Your other ducks, mallards, gadwall, pintails, widgeon, they will nest up to a half a mile away from water.
Yep.
And they will walk their brood to water.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, you have some small creeks on your property. Mm-hmm. So there's the water there. So it will not be detrimental at all to drain the water, because the ducks don't nest. They don't build nests on the water. They're either wood ducks build them in hollow cavities in trees, or they are dry ground nesters.
Yeah.
That's usually
100%.
Around here, they will dry nest closer to a break between a field and a wood line. So if you've got a CRP, you got a cornfield here, and you got a CRP strip, they will nest in that CRP strip. That's what they prefer to do.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're on the money. I mentioned I was leery of draining the water off because so many ducks were in there. I guess I just didn't want to scare them off. But you're right. You're completely. They actually call our dabbling ducks, they're like mallards, they call them upland nesters, right?
Right.
They don't nest over water. Some divers will. Your redheads and your canvasbacks nest over water. They'll get in there and they'll pull the reeds down and they'll make a nest that's on the water.
Right.
But dabblers don't do that. They, like you said, Matt, they will. Those little bitty tiny baby ducks that will fit in the palm of your hand will walk a half a mile or more to get to a creek or wherever. I mean, yes, I guess what I was thinking, and I'd have to leave water on them all summer if I wanted to do this, is all those little invertebrates. That's what those ducklings love to eat, because they got all that protein. They're growing fast just like a kid or a puppy or whatever. Right. So all those invertebrates would be valuable food for them. But it's a balance, right? If I did that, I wouldn't be able to plant it for honey.
The big thing about when to take water off is not so much for nesting birds, but for birds that are on the return trip north. So if you've got, so for example, your birds came down, they migrated all the way to Florida or maybe even further. On their way up, that would be a good stopping point where they could refuel and gather up invertebrates for their nesting when they get to their to their nesting grounds. So there's where you're having your issues from when to pull the water off, because and I always say mid-spring, especially in the South, go ahead and start pulling, because you got to get that ground dry to plant. That's my theory on it, and everything I've read and talked to people and just life experience. So that's what I've always been told.
I agree. And Jeff just posted here about what Nebraska does. They, and he brings up a great point is look at what all the I'm not an expert at all. I'm just kind of stumbling through best I can. But look at what all these state game agencies do and all these people that are highly skilled at developing waterfowl habitat, they're draining it off this time of year so that they can plant for it. And if that was going to be detrimental to the population of ducks, they wouldn't do that. Now, Ron, you mentioned you guys have to compromise because you own the land together, and that's reasonable. Maybe a compromise is drain it halfway. Most of the times on our holes, we have a high end and a deeper end. Drain it halfway. Plant half of it. Leave the other half flooded, so that those remaining ducks will maybe come in there, and there's some invertebrates. Something to consider. But I think you can point to what all of the state game agencies do. Look and see what happens to locally. Heck, talk to the agency in your state. I bet you could find their phone number online. You could probably talk to the guy or one of the guys. Well, I don't be sexist. Maybe it's a woman, but talk to the person that's in charge of what they do for waterfowl habitat in your state and ask their professional opinion. Right? That might sway your buddy. If the expert in Ohio says, no, you're not going to hurt anything if you do that. You're going to, here's the benefits of it. Maybe that's how you guys resolve that.
Well, I mean, if I know Ron wasn't in here earlier, but Daniel for Living MN, he's in Minnesota, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of ducks that are showing up.
Yeah.
Because it's starting to thaw. I guarantee those ducks aren't in Nebraska anymore.
Yeah.
They're already up into the breeding areas. So for us, especially in the southern states, our ducks have already gone. We're going to have local stuff, of course. We're going to have resident birds, of course. In Ohio, you're going to have resident birds, of course. But it's not detrimental whatsoever, and it's just sound management.
Yeah, agreed.
And another thing you can think of as far as wildlife management, not just for ducks, but if you drain it off early enough, guess what's going to go in there? Your wild turkeys.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that. Good point.
Your turkeys are going to start going in there because that ground is soft. That ground has invertebrates, bugs, spilt grain, leftover grain. It has all kind of little frogs and tadpoles and crawfish and just all kind of little foods. It's easy to get to. Guess what? You've got your turkey hunting stuff. You got a place now. You have turkeys could possibly go into. Also, those areas would be great nesting areas for the wild turkey.
Yeah.
So you got to when you're looking at duck management, you got to look at a lot of different things, not just the ducks, but look at duck management. Think wildlife management.
Right. And I tend to not do that as well as I should. I'll get hyper focused on I gotta have every square inch nice, right? So you're right. It's a system. I just tried to look it up real quick, and man, I'm sure you've seen it, but I think it's called the NRCS handbook. It's been around for a while. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, right? It's a government agency, but there's this NRCS handbook, and they will outline for you in very specific terms how to best manage your property if you want to do moist soil habitat for ducks. And
I believe they go state by state too.
Do they get that specific? I think,
or if not state by state, they're going to do regions.
Yeah.
And when to plant, when not to plant.
Right.
When to drain.
Yeah. I think they put it in terms of like when your last frost is. It's like early season, mid season, and late season, and you want to start a slow drawdown in that first third of the growing season right after your last frost. So that's how you promote the growth of those moist soil plants like the smartweeds and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, that NRCS handbook, and it's kind of a technical handbook, but it's an easy read. It'll explain some stuff in detail, but it also explains some other stuff in terms that are easy for us normal folks to understand. It's not a super hyper technical document that
Exactly.
doesn't make any sense unless you have a PhD in waterfowl management, right? So it's a
Let me
good read.
let me say hello to Hunter Coker. Hunter, how you doing? How are you and your dad doing? Appreciate you coming in, brother.
Hey, Hunter.
Hunter, I sent you a text earlier. I got the hats in, Bo. Just give me a holler. Hunter and his dad are locals around here. The story behind that was I was running up to the local Dollar General, which is about 3 miles up the road from me, and I pull in and I'm getting out. I'm going inside. I can't even remember what I was getting, but all of a sudden this truck stops in the parking lot and goes, "Hey, dirty duck!" And I turn around ready to fight. I don't know what's going on. And it's Hunter's dad, and so we ended up sitting there talking, had a good conversation.
That's cool.
They turned out to they were subscribers of mine. They knew I was in Sumter, where my hometown, but they didn't know where. And then we just ran into each other, and just struck up a conversation and that kind of thing. It was kind of funny, kind of flattering and funny all at the same time. So
that is kind of funny, yeah. And I haven't had that happen. I don't. If it does, I'll be shocked for sure. I'll be shocked for sure.
I'm gonna holler at you. Just got a new phone, same number, just probably didn't come through. Okay. Ron saying they got turkeys, lots of deer, 34 acres, beavers and muskrats too. All right. Mark has got to leave. Like I said, he's a trapper and he's got to go work on some hides.
Oh, okay.
He's just going to leave the live running. He'll probably be listening to it or
cool
throwing something at me here in a little bit. I don't know. But do y'all do any? Speaking of trapping, do y'all do any trapping on your property?
I do not. I've never done any kind of trapping. I do see coons on the cameras, and we've got actually Nate shot a rabid coon during deer season last year. It was getting kind of aggressive at him. He told me the other day. He said he sat in his truck for like 10 or 15 minutes, and it just kind of hung out. And he finally got out, and the thing started coming at him, and he shot it. We got coons, we got coyotes. The neighbor told me there's a bear, which was a little unnerving, when I'm sitting out there in the dark last year. But no, I don't do any trapping. I don't think Scott or his family ever does. I've never done that myself.
Okay. Hunter was asking me how did turkey season go. I did not pull the trigger this year. Not exactly the birds. Like I have a piece of property which is about 20 acres. It's my brother-in-law's. He allows me to turkey hunt on it. I'm the only one that turkey hunts on it. Him and my sister, they deer hunt on it, but I'm the only person that turkey hunts.
Sure.
And there are birds there. There's quite a few, but they do not gobble.
Yeah.
They do not gobble. So I could run a call all day long. Every now and then I'll see a hen or hear a hen. I have seen gobble, toms on it. I've seen the big birds there. They just don't respond, and it's more of an ambush. I mean, it really is. If I'm going to kill something, it's going to be an ambush. So that is just the way it is.
There's turkeys out there at the farm. Nate, if you're still here, I'd put in there that we actually heard a hen last year during dove season, and I think Nate and I heard some turkeys when we were duck hunting this year. I've never heard one gobble out there. I don't know if Nate has. I know he and his dad go out there and turkey hunt some. I don't know if they've ever shot any out there. I have seen them in the vicinity. I was driving down the road coming to the farm last year, and I saw a big flock of them out in the field. Actually, I saw some late winter, early spring this year too. So they're in the area. I don't. It's kind of what you said. I don't know if I've ever heard one gobble out there. And when we were planting the dove field a couple weeks ago, they were trying to get them to gobble, and we didn't hear anybody.
Charles was asking what part of North Carolina that you're in, but Tom answered it. Hunter saying we ran into him last year in Georgia. Yeah. I don't think mine is due to pressure. I think mine is due to coyotes and wild dogs.
Yeah.
I think that's what my issues are.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get my brother-in-law to set coyote traps or get somebody to go in there and set traps. He doesn't want to do it because he owns about 6 German Shepherds.
Yeah.
And if they ever got loose and they went running through the woods, he was afraid, which I understand. These are registered dogs. They're high dollar dogs.
Sure.
They're not they're not puppy mill dogs is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And I've had to take a trap off of somebody's dog's foot once, and that wasn't very fun. He was fine, but it still wasn't very fun.
Right.
There's coyotes out there. I've got them on trail cameras. I haven't actually seen one, in person out there. I think I've heard them once or twice. There's coyotes out there. There's actually quite a bit of housing out there as well. I mean, it's out in the country, but there's houses up and down the street. So, they've been kind of quiet. Yeah, Tom just mentioned that I've seen coyotes dead on the sidewalk going to work kind of thing around here.
I live in a neighborhood, and it's what we call the island because everything around us is in the country except for this neighborhood, which is in the city.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And I've stepped out to take the trash out, at night, Thursday nights, so they can pick it up Friday. And I see one loping down the road. And I'm like,
yeah, I used to hear him. We moved to a new house about 2 years ago, which is actually farther outside of town. We were right smack in the middle of town, and I used to hear coyotes all the time at the old place. I haven't heard them here. I did hear turkeys a couple weeks ago, but I haven't heard any coyotes here. I had a fox run across my backyard last winter. That was kind of neat.
I saw. I started to pop him, but I had a red fox. I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful red fox. I'm sitting in my turkey blind. I got to pop up. Number one is because of cameras. I'm running cameras.
Sure.
I just don't run a GoPro on my head. I got cameras everywhere, and he just kind of just came right in front of me, and I'm like, and I didn't have a camera running, I didn't have anything running, and I was just like,
what?
That was a fox, and I could grab him as soon as I grabbed my shotgun, and I was sticking it out the window, and then I said, no, if I'm going to do that, I want to get it on camera, and
yeah.
Bougie is doing good. She's at my feet right now, sleeping. She made her debut a little while ago, but right now she's sleeping. We're still working on her sit and hear. Again, she's only 3 months old, so that's all. And today we played a little bit with a bumper. I was throwing a bumper across the backyard. She was actually getting it, and then bringing it back. Now she'd drop it at my feet, but 3-month-old puppy, she still hasn't, figured out. All she wants is that treat at the end.
Yeah.
So exactly. She knows if she does it good, she's going to get a treat. So I'm hoping by the end of May that I can actually start setting up a camera and doing training, still backyard training. I took her last Friday, or we had a storm Friday, and right after the storm, I took her over to a friend of mine's house who has a small pond. And what I wanted to do was just get her feet wet, see how she reacted. I wasn't going to throw her in. I wasn't going to do any of that crazy stuff. However, my buddy neglected to tell me that when they dug the pond out, instead of digging it like this, they dug it like that. and I stepped off on that clay bank, and I went down, and I was the one that went swimming. And she just kind of looked at me like, I ain't getting in there.
Just sat down and said, "What is that guy doing?"
Yeah, he's a little fat fellow rolling down there like a big old walrus or an otter. Wish I had the camera going then, but I didn't.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm planning on taking her. Now that the turkey season is over here, I plan on taking her on my days off. We're gonna still continue with the sit and the here for, and by the end of the month, I think that's going to be set. But I'm going to be taking her, putting her in the boat, letting her sniff around the boat a little bit, get her used to the motor running. I've got a mud motor, so she's got to get used to that noise. Yeah. Then we're going to take her for a little small boat ride, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to have a hard time driving the boat and making her stay in one spot. So I got that to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm going to start taking her down to the boat landings and letting her walk on the dock.
Okay.
Getting used to walking on a dock, because I don't care if you've got a grown dog, if they've never done it before, they get all
starts getting wobbly under their feet and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to start doing that probably by the end of the month, or maybe a little bit here and a little bit there this month. Yeah. But usually at the end of the month is going to be, that's when all that's going to happen. Because I'm really hoping that, and I haven't seen Craig tonight, who is another guy from North Carolina, who's my buddy, who I hunt with a lot. He's got some wings for me, and I need to drive up there and
that's good. Yeah.
Because I didn't think I was going to get this dog when I did.
Yeah.
So I didn't save anything.
Yeah.
So I got to get some wings, and hopefully by the end of the summer, she is going to be retrieving.
Good.
And we're going to hunt her.
Cool. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Open day, North Carolina, inland season. I'm going to be hunting her somewhere.
Cool.
Somewhere.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it takes time. So Rosie is my third lab that I've had, and Ripley, my first one, didn't get to hunt much. Like I mentioned, when I moved here, I life got in the way. I didn't get to hunt too much. But then I had Elsie after that, who was just an absolute hot rod on the ducks. But patience, it takes patience. This Rosie, I got her. She was too young to hunt last year. She was just a small pup. And I was real concerned. And I got her from a very well-known breeder that is, supposed to be the stuff, right? And she was 6 months old, and I was kind of worried that I had a dud. She wouldn't pick up a duck or a bird or anything. And I was getting worried, and then it kind of flipped us. I did a couple of things. One, I started just letting her chase a tennis ball in the yard. Dogs love to chase stuff. So she started, and here's a neat thing I'm a Labrador Retriever guy, right? For a lab, the reward, you pet them on the head, give them a treat, the reward is going to get it and bring it back. They love doing that. So I was just throwing a tennis ball for her in the backyard, and she started getting fired up on that. And then Tom's son had shot a teal, and he brought me that one day, which was a small bird, right? So she could get it in her mouth easily. So combination of those, finally about 6 or 7 months, it was starting to come around for her, and she was starting to get excited about it. And now, she's doing great. She retrieved every bird that we shot over her this year, dove and duck as well. And I was out at the farm today, and we actually jumped a couple of dove that were on the ground, and she got real excited about that and ran back to that spot 2 or 3 times looking for him again, right? So, it takes time, it takes patience, and dogs, like people, all have their own personality. And Elsie, the lab I had previously, she was just full afterburner from 8 weeks old. Would retrieve you if I threw you and told her to go get you, right? And she retrieved her first duck at 6 months. But that wasn't Rosie. That's not her personality. So it just takes time and patience. What about that goose? Thanks, Tom. I appreciate
All right,
that.
hang on 1 second. Hunter, call me tomorrow when you get off work. I will come down there and pick a couple of them up. He's got some wings in a bag. He lives 5 minutes from my house.
Oh, there you go.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
So, and then Jeff says he tries to get his. I try to get my dog gun trained before the 4th of July. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Firecrackers. Any opinion on Boss shotgun shells? Woo, yeah. All right, here we go.
So Ron, I do have an opinion of them, and it's a very high opinion.
I love them.
That is a fantastic product. I found them a couple. I think I got my first box 3 years ago, and then I bought over the last couple of years. I bought a couple cases, and I heard the founder of the company say all you need is in a 12 gauge is a 2 3/4 inch number 5, and I'm like, but a 3 inch is better, right? And no, all you need for decoying ducks, mallards. I even killed when Tom and I and some other buddies went to Arkansas 2 seasons ago. I shot speckled belly geese and snow geese with number 5 Boss business out of a 12 gauge and dropped them like stones. And if you watch one of the videos I made, I took my old 20 gauge. Boss makes a 2 3/4 inch 20 gauge, 7/8 ounce of number 5 bismuth. I blew a wood duck up. I mean, there was nothing left of it. It was really close, obviously, but yeah, I definitely the 3.5 people like that. And if I thought I was I killed a goose. Even though Tom tried to tease me about it, I killed a goose with number 5 bismuth. I've killed both of the geese I've ever shot in my life with number 5 bismuth, and it works. It's all, unless something drastic happens, that's all I plan to shoot from here on out. Is
let me put it to you like this. I can't show it on a live stream. I wish I could. But in that big golden box behind me is a 1952 Browning A5 16 gauge.
There you go. Yeah.
Fixed full choke. This is the standard 16, not the sweet 16. I had to put that gun away because we always have a steel. Now, I grew up in the days of lead.
Me too.
So when I was growing up, I'm going to tell you what we shot. Winchester Western, Super X, 2 3/4 baby Magnum, either 7.5s or number 5s. That was it. That's what we shot.
Wow.
We preferred the 7.5s because we shot in the timber.
Mm-hmm.
And it would wrap a mallard duck slap up.
Wow.
So when Boss came out, and I went and bought several boxes of 5s, several boxes of 7s. And the 7s actually patterned better. And I can't tell you what I have shot with those 7s at some fairly, I'm not saying long distance because we had this discussion. Everything is within shooting. But I made some shots with those 7s that people looked and went, really? And I went, yeah. I'm out of 7s right now, and all I have are number 5s. But I wrapped up in October. Again, they're 16 gauges, 2 3/4 only. That, if you know anything about guns.
Yeah.
Opening day last year, we wrapped up mallards, and all I was shooting was number 5s out of a 16 gauge.
Yeah.
I don't think. I've got some steel shot back here, but I don't think I will go back. Even though the price has gone up on Boss, I still think it's worth it.
Yeah, I do too.
Number one, less cripples. I've had less cripples with them. I had one duck I had to shoot twice last year. One duck. I hit, and that was my fault. I was behind the duck, but still got enough on him to knock him down.
Right.
And he was, I mean, I was behind the duck. There's no getting around it. I was behind it. I knew I was when I pulled the trigger.
Sure.
But so I had to shoot him twice, but that's one duck.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. It's
one
good
shell,
stuff,
one
man.
duck. I mean, it's been like that, and they're stone cold dead. I mean, there's no, there's nothing flopping. The only thing that's flopping on them is nerves.
Yeah, you mentioned patterning it, and I've got to do that with my boss this season because I noticed a couple of things this season that make me think, at least out of my guns, it's patterning pretty tight, which surprises me. I thought it would pattern more open than the steel that I used to shoot the heavy metal steel number 3. But a couple of things that I noticed. One, if in the video where Tom joined me in the blind and we shot some wood ducks, with that video, I had the camera on my head, and in that video, when I slow it down, you can actually see the shot, and that duck is 20, 25 yards away, and you can see the shot, and it's the size of the duck when it's going out there. So I'm thinking at 25 yards, I should have a bigger pattern than that. I blew that duck up at about 12 yards. I mean, it literally, the pattern was like this. It blew the duck to pieces. And then again, when I was hunting out of the curtain blinds out in the Sound this year, the ducks got too close to us, and I think I saw some of the footage there as well, where I had a pattern, like the size of a golf ball. So I'm going to pattern that stuff this year. Everything I've got 2 3/4 and 3-inch 20 gauge. I'm gonna shoot that through a couple of guns, and the same thing for 12 gauge. I'm gonna shoot it through several different guns, several different chokes. I'll probably shoot a video of it, even though there's a 1,000,003 patterning videos out there, just to show, see what I learned from it. I'm actually looking on the screen of my laptop over here. I've got that slow-mo picture of that shot pattern coming out, and it looks really tight. So I'm curious to see what I learned from that. But that's something I think a lot of us forget to do. And I don't know. Maybe I'll find out I'm wrong. Maybe I just am missing. But it seems like I got a really tight pattern.
Well, God willing, and unless somebody wants to send me some money, I'm hoping to get the new 16 gauge Browning this year.
Nice.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm working toward it. That's
cool.
Like everything else, you gotta save up sometimes just to get what you want. But Browning has come out with the Sweet 16, which we all know, but they've come out with the Wicked Wings edition.
Yeah.
And that is the gun I want. I want it badly.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out extra ways to make money so I can get this thing without hurting things. And
right. Yeah, they're proud of them.
Oh yeah, they're very proud of them.
Right.
But that's the gun I want. And
yeah, that's cool. One of the guys that I grew up hunting with, my dad's best friend, he lived across the street from us. He was my high school band director, and he's from West Tennessee, and he grew up. I think he learned to blow a duck call from Chick Majors, if anybody recalls that name from the history of duck hunting, right? So he shot an old 16 gauge Belgian Browning that he had to put away when we had to switch to steel. But he'd been carrying that gun, I think, since he was in high school. So those are neat guns, and it's great. This boss, I've actually got, and I may call boss and ask them their opinion. I have my grandfather's 1949 LC Smith 20 gauge side by side that he carried bird hunting. He used to raise pointers and setters, and my mom talks about following the dogs on horses at field trials. And that was the gun that he carried. And the few times that I got to dove hunt, my grandfather wasn't a duck hunter, but he would shoot high brass 6s at doves and just come back purple, because that gun weighs about 5.5 pounds. But if I can catch a nice sunny day where I know that gun won't get the slightest bit of moisture, I might take some of those 2 3/4. I mean, it's still tight. It's still a it's 1949 is when so it's a 70-something-year-old gun. I may take it in the blind with me.
That would be
perfect conditions before I do that.
That would be a video.
Yeah.
My buddy Craig he's not here tonight, but I keep telling him the video that I want to do is old school, and I want old school guns. we got to use new ammo because let's just face it, you can't shoot lead, and I'm not putting steel in a old gun.
No
So
gun.
it'll be bismuth.
Yeah.
But over here on my, this is my left. I got to think about it. Over here on my left, I've got about 2.5 dozen cork and wood decoys.
Oh, wow.
Some that I have bought, some that I've made myself.
Cool.
So I want to one day have this old school hunt with these decoys, old guns, old men, just having a good time.
Yeah.
Reminiscing about the late 70s and early 80s, and just having a good time.
Ron,
Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I got the hats in, Jeff. Jeff's asking about the hats. So I've got the hats in. There they are. I ordered 24. I have 15 left. I am selling them for $35, but that includes shipping. Because let's face the fact, shipping is outrageous. I don't care. It is just crazy. And the whole idea is to sell the hats, so make enough money so that I can buy more hats.
There you go.
And keep going. I'm not gonna take this money and put it somewhere else. It's going back into merchandise.
Cool.
But I want to start the merchandise thing. I've got some ideas for t-shirts, but I got to start somewhere and I got to start making money. So they're, like I said, they're $35. If you want one, email me. I have PayPal, but I'd prefer if y'all had Cash App. PayPal is just complicated for me. Cash App, I got it. I can do Cash App. And then I'll get them sent out. But I've only got 15 left. I am keeping several for myself. I got one on my head, but I'm keeping them an extra one for myself, and always have a couple in the truck for mesh back. Yep, it's got a mesh back. It's a Richardson. If you can read that, it's a Richardson hat. The plastic deals in the back, the clasp.
Cool.
But like I said, that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna have a couple in the truck. So if I'm at a boat ramp and I run into some kids, the kids, I'm just gonna be cool with them.
Yeah.
I got decals over here. So you order a hat, I'm throwing in a decal in the package.
Oh, that's awesome.
That kind of thing. But I got to start somewhere. And that's after dividing everything and saying, okay, I got to make something. This is how much the hat cost me. This is how much it's going to cost to ship. And this is what I'm making.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
You're not going to be a millionaire off that.
No, by no means. By no means.
That's cool.
But that's what I'm going to be doing. So Jeff asked. So, like I said, shoot me an email if you want one, and I'll get back with you. But I got them. I do have them. We've been waiting 3 weeks for these things.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's not too bad, I guess. I mean, compared to what some other stuff is these days.
Oh yeah, it was. The company I'm going through is called East Coast Waterfowl. He lives
I'm familiar with them. Yeah,
Kent Jones. That's who I got him from.
Okay.
Really cool guy. I had a great time talking. Yeah, Jeff, I'll do one from you. Yep. So you know, I saw him at the South Carolina Palmetto class, the Palmetto Classic, and I knew of him. I've been watching some of his stuff. I met him. We sat there and we talked for a while. You know, I told him what I was interested in. He said, "Yeah, man, when this is all done, give me a call." I gave him a call, and you know, he was on his way to Florida, you know, for more shows. So it just took a little bit of time, and and then
yeah, those guys are, excuse me, sorry, those guys are North Carolina based. They're just 2 hours from where we are. I forget exactly where, but it's not far. We need foul play hats too. Maybe, you know, I've thought about it. I'd have to come up with a maybe I could talk to my dad about designing a logo. He's the more artist. He's an interesting combination. Was ROTC and art minor during Vietnam, so he got a lot of fun going into art classes in his Army uniform. But I've got no visual artistic ability at all. But yeah, if I could come up with an interesting logo, I might do it. I think it'd be fun to have a hat. That'd be cool.
Well, Bruce, we've been on here for 2 hours.
I told you I can talk.
Yeah, and I can continue to talk. What I need to do is the puppy just woke up. She needs to go outside.
Yeah.
I got to get her out before she pees on the floor again.
Understood.
I'll email you on the weekend, mother-in-law. All right, Jeff, I got you, man. No problem. I'll put one off to the side for you. I promise you that. But Bruce, I want to invite you back anytime.
Sure,
we just like we did tonight, just talk about duck. Man, I love it.
I'm happy to. And I just throw the ask out there to anybody that watches the channel. If you have any questions about what I'm doing or going on, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll try to include something about it. And if I don't know anything, I'll just tell you I don't know anything, right? I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm going to do some dog stuff coming up and here real soon. Hopefully we're going to start putting some seed in the ground and things will get real. But yeah, if you got a question about anything, let me know. I'm here. You got to go, brother. You got to go.
Yeah, I got to go. She's starting to whine.
Okay.
All right, guys, listen, I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. If you haven't, please go over to Bruce's channel, Foul Play Outdoors. Watch one of his videos, give him a thumbs up, leave a comment, and it can be an emoji. It doesn't really matter. Just leave something there and then hit the subscribe button. And for some of Bruce's guys that came in here, I'm Daddy Duck 365. I'm easy. I'm the big fat guy. So I'd love to see you over on my side as well. But anyway, we're going to call it a night. Bruce, you're welcome anytime, dude. Monday night. If you just show up in the chat, I'm going to bring you up. We'll talk.
Okay, cool.
This puppy needs to get outside. So,
all right.
Y'all have a good night. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.